Before I start the video, I'd like to say that this actually took a lot of resources in order for me to make, so if you will, please rate, comment, and subscribe. It helps me do more stuff like this. And with that, onwards to the video. So here we have Xerox X-Wing Starfighter. This model has over 1,000 pieces. Brickvault doesn't really give a specific number, but evidently it's enough to have the turntable really struggle to turn this model around. It is kind of heavy, but I think all the extra pieces go really well into the kit. This kit does have some functions other than looking nice. As you'll see here, you can fit 2 minifigures in here. Sorry, the camera kind of refused to cooperate in terms of focusing. I'm using the 2006 Luke Skywalker and the R2-D2 because, well, why not? And this footage is just of me trying to get the minifigures in. I do have a little bit of trouble because there is a Technic piece that goes through where you're supposed to pin them in, although it isn't really much of an issue. And you'll see me have somewhat similar trouble with the R2. Again, it's not really that big of a problem, although the way those details around where R2 is supposed to go does make it a little bit difficult for me to get him in. And one of the pieces actually came off. One of the pieces, greebling on the top, actually came off when I was trying to put R2 in, and this is just of me bringing in the camera to show you that. So, in case anybody was wondering, this is minifigure scale. That's actually part of the reason why I got it. I'm just using Darth Vader here to compare. I believe canonically he's around 6 feet, although I could be wrong. I don't really check up on that kind of stuff often. But yeah, in case that's your thing, the scaling is appropriate. Now, there is a lot of bottom detail on the model, because, well, of course there is. You'll notice that 2x2 with a hole in it, that's where the stand is supposed to be, but I did not build the stand, unfortunately. But yeah, you can see that there's a lot of pretty awesome angles there, and you can open up the front landing gear like that. It's a little bit finicky. It attaches to a piece of flex tubing held between two 1x1s on the bottom. Although I personally don't really have too much of an issue with it. It is kind of hard to do with only one hand. This isn't really a play model, so it isn't super strong. You can also see that the other two landing gear are inside of the engines, and you can just get them to open and close just like that. The wings themselves are a separate construct from the main model, so they tend to wobble a bit, and sometimes some of the engine intakes do come off, although since it's a specific one, I think it's just an issue of the pieces themselves and not really the design. Speaking of pieces coming off, generally the model is pretty sturdy. You can hold it by I guess you'd call it the nose, the snout of the vehicle. I wouldn't really hold it by the nose. This is just me putting in the landing gear for all of you to see. Again, I do not have the stand. A lot of these functions are much easier when the model is on its stand, I've noticed. Even the wings opening, apparently that works much better when the model is on its stand. It's really hard to really do any of the functions of the model on its stand. And you might have actually noticed that I put 1x2 grill pieces on the wings, something that I seem to have forgotten in this footage. That's because it makes the wings come together much cleaner, although that is not part of the model. This is what the model looks like when the wings are as open as they're supposed to be. Yeah, I think I genuinely think it looks awesome. I'll show some pictures on the screen of the model with its wings fully open from Brickvault to get a better idea of how it looks. And here, that's me putting in the Technic gear that you're supposed to use as the key to open the wings. And it works fine, although I did accidentally knock off one of the engines. It is attached only by one stud, so you have to be careful with that. Yeah, generally the fragile parts of the model are the parts that look fragile. And you can also tell where the fragile parts are if you built the model, you know? I do have a little bit of trouble with the gear. I try to close the wings with it. The gear's functionality is hit or miss. Usually it hits when you try to open, but misses when you try to close. Here I actually have a clip of me actually getting them to cooperate with me relatively well. Apologies if the wings look slightly weird. Again, the wing is a separate construct. This is a display model, so you're not really meant to be handling it or whatnot, but this is how the function is usually supposed to work. And yeah, you can see the wings wiggle around a little bit. That's to be expected. So, as my final thoughts on the model, I'd say it was a pretty enjoyable build, although it was tough in some parts. There are some connections that did make me scratch my head for a little bit. The instructions could be a little vague sometimes. Sometimes they'll leave pieces floating in the air, and you'll eventually have to realize, oh, it's supposed to go in there. That's really only a problem you have in the beginning of the instructions. The functionality of the wings does seem to vary from person to person. There is a single 1x1 with a hole in it where if you position it correctly, you'll get the wings to work, but if you don't, you have to deconstruct essentially the entire body in order to get to it to flip it around. So you do have to be careful with some of the orientation of the pieces. Some of the orientations do get pretty specific in order for connections to work. There's a connection near the nose that uses some flex tubing and some 1x1s with holes in them. And yeah, you connect those to a clip, and you have to angle them at a very specific angle in order for them to clip into another section of the cockpit. So, other than some oddly specific connections, generally the model was pretty easy and pretty enjoyable to build. I think it looks fantastic. I mean, I wouldn't have built it if I didn't think it looks fantastic. It serves as a great introduction to building more of these more so advanced mocks. I will have to say this is generally harder to build than anything I've ever built from Brickmania. Brickmania doesn't really use illegal building techniques that much, at least the kits that I've built. Not knocking them for that or anything. But yeah, if you have any questions about the model, or if there's anything you want to know about the model, leave them down in the comments below. I'll do my best to try and answer them. And with that, I think that's pretty much all I have to say about this model. Thank you for watching. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. It helps me make more videos like this, and it also boosts my position in the algorithm, so I get more attention. And with that, guess I'll sign off. Again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you later. Goodbye.